Wow, what a perfect break. The song ended right on time. That never happens. So, very, very happy to be hanging out with you all again today on LinkedIn. Uh, we're doing this about every week now, and it's good to be back in Scotland, our intergalactic headquarters, and we've got a lot to cover today. So I'm going to just dive right into it. This is a topic that I think is so important for product companies that we're going to devote an entire LinkedIn Live to a session to this, but we're also going to bring on some customers to kind of reinforce what I'm saying to you, because I realize that there's a lot of different viewpoints, and there's a lot of good stuff here that we'll want to get other people to weigh in on. So let's go over to our agenda today. Selling training. Why does this matter? And what are all the different business models and things that you want to consider if you're a product company that is going to be selling training? Now, today's focus mostly is going to be on if you are a product company, i.e., you're selling a product that is not training, that's your main product, and you want to figure out how to weave training into that. And there's a whole bunch of benefits, and we're going to talk about that and so forth. But, some of these things that we're talking about today will also apply if you are a training company that where your primary business is the sale of training. So not everything will be one-to-one, and we'll do another probably deep dive into how a training company should operate and so forth in the future. But today we're really kind of focused on product training. And so the agenda for today is to talk about why are we selling training at all? Why is this important? The challenges around selling training and how, the pitfalls and things that people tend to stumble into and so forth, and how to solve those. Discuss various different business models that we see being very effective out there, and ultimately talk about some of the outcomes that you can expect. So, we got a lot to cover here. Got my trusty Lego head mug here, or as we say in Scotland, Lego heed. Still getting over a bit of a cold. So today's broadcast is also still sponsored by Lemsip, the all-time greatest cold medicine that you can find, both in powder and pill form. I'd highly recommend it. I think it's a UK only thing. And, the UK invented things like the World Wide Web and the steam engine and so forth. I think Lemsip is the greatest claim to fame in terms of invention. So why are we talking about this? Why is this so important? What is in it for organizations when they think about training and selling it? Why? Why would you do this? And the simplest answer is this, which is customer success. And I'm going to make a statement here that may strike some of you as bold, but I absolutely, completely believe it. And it's a blind spot for a lot of folks, whether you're an entrepreneur building a company, whether you're an established business that has been going for many years. A lot of the companies we work with are large multinationals, and they still haven't gotten this right or thought about this in the correct way. And that is, a quality training program is the highest leveraged investment that you can make into customer success right now. I don't care what size of company you are. I don't care what stage you're at. I don't care what your product is, whatever. We believe this. I believe this. And when you think about that, being able to make a blanket statement like that, it's pretty powerful. So we're gonna back that up with a whole bunch of discussion. But this is the highest leveraged thing that you can do right now into customer success, is building a quality training program that you are selling the training for to your own customers. Okay. And the benefits in customer success are far ranging. So these are just a few of them. There will be others that will come out of this, and we'll talk about some of those a little bit later, and we'll bring some customers on here and talk about this with them. But basically, here's just a list that we have seen, not only with our own customers, but with our own business ourselves. One of the things that I mentioned when I was posting on LinkedIn about this live stream last week was this is one of the biggest mistakes we made at Administrate when we were trying to grow as a company, is we waited too long and did not invest into a customer training program that we were selling to our customers. It hurt our growth. It hurt a lot of our customer success metrics. It's something that I wish I could rewind the clock and probably start that maybe within the first couple of years of getting going. I think we waited until kind of year 6 or 7 after talking about it for a few years. So don't be like us. Solve this problem as early as you can if you're an entrepreneur or startup, and if you're a large established multinational. Make sure that you put investment here because it will pay off big time. So faster, more successful implementations. If you've got a training program that's there that people are working through alongside in tandem with implementation, that is a fantastic way to make sure that the implementations go smoother and don't drag out. Lower support volume and burden. So when we launched our customer training program, which we call Administrate University, it actually blew my mind. And we're in this business, right? Our whole platform is designed to support training and customer training. And what happened was, we released the program, and everybody was talking about metrics like, hey, we got 25 customers through, and so forth, and certificates were being issued, and people were completing the program or whatever. But the thing that I'll never forget that happened was our customer success VP came in and said, hey, by the way, did you know that anybody that went through the training program and was certified for the entire customer, not just the user, their support ticket volume dropped by half. So they were submitting half as many support tickets, and that was just with 1 or 2 certified users. That was not the entire user base at that customer. And it makes sense, right? If you've got a question, you're going to go to your expert that's on your team, that's sitting a few desks over, or on Zoom or Slack or something like that, and you're not going to necessarily submit a support ticket. So it was a massive improvement in terms of volume for us. Better adoption. So we kind of see this on 2 axes. The first is you will get increased adoption by customers, i.e. they'll be using more of your product and using it more aggressively. But you will also get faster adoption when you have customers that have gone through a training program or that is supported by training. And what I mean by that is if you release a new feature, or you've got a new product line, or you acquire a company and you're rolling out a new product, the customers that have invested the time to go through your training programs and that see these new training modules come up are going to be much faster at adopting new features. And you'll find that this becomes a superpower over time, because it's just continues to pay off the more that you do this. So it's a fantastic way to increase adoption, both in speed and also just in terms of breadth. One of the things that we noticed, and I know many of our customers that work at product companies notice, is that you get much faster, much more high quality product feedback when you've got a customer training program. And if you think about it again, this makes sense, but it's one of those things that we don't necessarily sit down and kind of have an aha moment around, which is if you have folks that are sitting there in a classroom training environment that are being taught by an instructor and they're going through the product and so forth, that instructor, those folks that are in that class will start feeding back on what they like and dislike about the product. And that can become one of the best sources for your product and engineering team to gain feedback. And they can gain it in a structured manner, right? You can actually not only get the unsolicited stuff that's coming back, but you can actually put questions out there for those classes and those students that are coming through the programs and say, hey, for next week's cohort, we want to see what the feedback is on this, or as you're training this feature, get feedback along the way. So it's really, really a great mechanism for that. One of my all-time favorite stories and benefits for a customer training program was actually a case study of ours that happened to a company called ForgeRock. And we're going to get Kevin, who's formerly their VP and built that whole training program from the ground up. He's going to be coming on not only our podcast that we're launching soon, but a couple other LinkedIn Lives. Great guy, known him for years. And he might tell this story, but I'm going to tell it very quickly for him. And that is, ForgeRock was a software as a service company, large identity management provider. If you're in the UK, for example, and you process a transaction using the open banking network, which is a lot of us, the authentication mechanism for that open banking initiative is provided entirely by ForgeRock. They've now since merged with Ping. So it's a very large, formerly publicly traded company. They started off very, like most startups do, small, and then grew over the next 7 or 8 years, just a rocket ship ride. And for them, subscriptions of their software was really, really important. And one of the things that they noticed was that by monitoring the training uptake, they could predict customer churn. And that, again, it makes sense when you start to think about it, but customers who are not interested in renewing for your product or have a beef with your product or they're not getting along well, they are going to stop doing the training. They're going to stop engaging with the training first, long before the decision or the message has been sent in to the renewals team that they're canceling. And so Kevin and his team on the training side could start feeding this information to the renewals team and to customer success and account managers and so forth, and they could head off churn or at least not be surprised by it. So it was a great early warning mechanism. And ultimately, all of this boils down into increased customer retention. I don't care if you're a subscription software company or not. If you're selling products, people are going to come back over and over and over again, and much more so if you have quality training that helps them achieve success in a much faster, better way. Okay? So, and there's a whole bunch of downstream benefits from this as well, right? We're talking customer success is kind of the one or two word reason why you'd want to do this. But and it'll drive all these metrics, like things like NPS, CSAT, adoption, whatever. But there are a whole bunch of downstream benefits that you will get as well. So customer success, think of that as the kind of the initial carrot. But once you've achieved that and you're driving those metrics and you're working really well, there are other things that will happen. And one of the things that I like the most in my role, and our CFO loves, is the second piece down, right? Which is revenue and profit. So by selling your training to your customers, and also we'll talk briefly about, you don't have to just sell training to customers. You can also sell training to potential customers, or training that is adjacent to your product that would be of interest to your target customers, those types of things. But you can start to drive revenue, and that will then become profit over time. And one of the things that has been kind of astonishing to me over the last few years, kind of witnessing some of these really, really high quality, fast growing training programs, is just how much revenue can be driven. We're talking millions of dollars for companies that are at scale, and we'll kind of explain why this is probably one of the easiest ways you can drive additional revenue to your business if you're not selling your training today in just a bit. And there's another thing that I kind of just call the halo of success, for lack of a better term. And that is when you've got a high quality training operation that's running within your company, that is training your customers well. What tends to happen is the best practices and things that you're implementing on the customer side will start to bleed over into maybe your internal training of your own employees. A lot of times we recommend that customers who are running a they're running a customer training program also put all of their vendors, partners, employees through big pieces of that program. And so you get a bunch of benefits from that. The other thing is you start to basically build out a culture of learning within your organization and a culture of agility. One of the best tools that you can throw at change and throw at change management is training. If you're going to make a big change in the organization, spin up a training program, run everybody through it. It drives alignment. It can be an early warning system in and of itself based on feedback and so forth. And we see that by really nailing this kind of core mechanism of customer training, it starts to pay off all across the business. And ultimately, we then like to see, and we have seen many, many times, where training teams become looked at. They're moved out of that kind of cost of doing business area or mind space, and they're put into the forefront of business change. That helps with careers, that helps with business growth overall, and it's something that I think is really important, and it's kind of this like halo effect of running a quality customer training program. So, okay, now let's talk about, hopefully I've convinced you that having a customer training program and that's alongside your product is useful and worthwhile, let's talk about why it is important to sell this training. Now, this is a scene from The Dark Knight, one of my favorite comic book films. And it's a scene where basically the Joker, played by Heath Ledger, is being asked, if he hates the Batman so much and he just wants to get after him, why is he charging these other criminals for his services? And he says, if you're good at something, never do it for free, right? And I think that is an important lesson, not only for criminals trying to overthrow Batman, but also for us when we think about training, okay? Now, I just want to talk very quickly on this, but really, the debate between selling versus free training, I think, is not one that should really be a debate. If you do not sell your training, then your customer will not prioritize or value it. You only have to look at the stats around MOOCs and other kind of free online courses. The dropout rate is huge. Very few people complete them. And the same thing will translate over if you are giving your training away for free. Now, you don't have to sell every single piece of it, but 99% of the training that you are delivering should be sold, in our opinion. And that's very, very important. But the second thing is probably even more important than the customer valuing or prioritizing training, and that is your organization will value or prioritize your training if you're selling it, and it will not value or prioritize training if you're not selling it. And it's a simple thing. There's finite resources. Everybody is vying for budget and so forth. In order to do this and do this well, which is point number 3, you need money, you need bodies, and you need time. Now, you don't need a lot of money and you don't need a lot of bodies or time because you'll be able to get your training program profitable very quickly. But you have to value the training from an organizational standpoint and from a customer standpoint. And all those customer success metrics and all those things we were talking about are really nice. But what really, really gets people's attention is revenue, and even more importantly, after that, in many cases, is profitability. So, it is very, very rare for a profitable business line to be messed with, cut, downsized, etc. And that's why this is super important. The customer uptake will anecdotally be 10 times if you're selling this versus giving it away for free. Okay. Now, if all this is such a slam dunk and everything is so great and, this is so obvious, why do more companies not prioritize this? Why is it such a challenge and so forth? And I think, there's some pretty clear reasons for that. And ultimately, it boils down to we believe there's a platform problem. And also there is a business model or kind of sales mechanism problem. So the platform problem, we'd encourage you to check out Administrate. It's what we do. It's all we do is help companies deliver training at scale, classroom and instructor-led training, whether it's in Zoom or a physical classroom. Come to us. Our software is built for this, and we've got a couple of other LinkedIn Live episodes we've done in the past as to how we're different from a learning management system and so forth. LMSs will sometimes deal with part of this, but this is our bread and butter. So talk to us about the platform challenge. We can solve that for you. And the second piece is this kind of sales mechanism challenge. All right. And so what I have very badly done here in terms of my graphic design abilities is I have attempted to show what tends to happen within a product company, right? If you're selling high value medical equipment, if you're selling some sort of, large equipment, if you're selling software like we do, you're going to have teams and their job is to sell product, right? And the product could be physical, it could be digital, it could be software, whatever it is. You have people that are tasked to sell this product, right? And all they think about is getting this product sold and out the door. And the problem is that with training, it becomes a distraction or a question mark or a friction point. And the sales teams view it as it is a secondary goal. It's not their prime reason for existing. And therefore, you've kind of got this dual track. And actually, the training sales is a complete afterthought. And often it won't even fall into the main sales team's remit. And I want to talk quickly about, why that is. So I'm going to jump ahead one slide. And here's the basic question that any sales team within a product organization will ask, which is, how in the world can I sell this, right? I'm trying to sell my product, and that might be hundreds of thousands of dollars or 50K or a million, whatever it is. I've been working on this deal for a long time. And then you have the organization or the training team coming alongside and saying, well, you need to sell training in addition to that. But the problem is training is a specific person going to a specific class on a specific date and at a specific time for a reason, i.e., I need to learn something very specific, and it will be at some point in the future. And it could be months into the future, it could be weeks, it could be years in the future, right? Because if I sell this product, maybe it takes 3 to 6 months to get installed. Maybe there's a rollout process, Rev 1 or, milestone 1, I do these things, and then milestone 2 to milestone 3. And the challenge is, nobody actually knows, like literally nobody knows who will be going to what class, when, and why at some point in the future. In many cases, the training team won't even have these classes scheduled yet, right? They won't be on the calendar. And if you think about enterprise sales, most of the time, the people that are buying, i.e. maybe an executive or so forth, they don't know, and the salespeople certainly aren't going to distract the deal by asking them, who are the 14 people that need to go through training and so forth, right? And so what happens is, this is basically a non-starter for most sales motions. Companies do not want to deal with this. They will say, okay, well, we'll do the sale later on, or, we'll bundle a few free hours into implementation, or we'll plop them on an e-learning class and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with e-learning or bundling stuff with implementation, but this is the core reason why most companies today struggle with selling their training. So I want to talk through a couple of business models and how to solve this problem. Okay, I'm going to go back a slide, and I've kind of put things into two different buckets, right? Which is how things get sold, and then what actually gets sold. Okay. Now, the direct channel is the one that we're probably all intuitively most familiar with. That's where I go and I see a list of classes or training that I can buy, and I put it into a shopping cart, and I go through a checkout process, and maybe I swipe my credit card, or maybe, the training costs a couple $1,000 or whatever it is, and I need to get invoiced and so forth, and it goes through a procurement process, right? Direct is well understood. It is a thing. Now, the challenges with direct sales are, how do you keep that list of training and products, i.e. classes, up to date and so forth? And that can be a very difficult thing, right? Training teams don't want to be copying and pasting every time they make a change to the schedule and so forth. So getting those course listings out there is a challenge, and is a challenge for a lot of folks. But luckily, that's an easy enough problem to solve. At Administrate, we have a number of different ways to solve that problem. As simple as, you go to this website URL that's provisioned for you automatically. Then you can embed JavaScript code in a website. That's another way to solve it. Or you can use our API. And customers have used a whole bunch of different. We'll probably do a whole nother episode that's just on how to integrate your website with Administrate in the future. The second, so you get your stuff out there, and people have a mechanism now to buy. Great, that's great. The second, but that is crucially not where most of your sales are going to come from, at least not initially. And crucially, that is meeting the customer when they're not at the ripest point for them to be making a buying decision. Okay. This is a customer is kind of trundling along, or maybe they're coming through SEO, or maybe they hear about this from their account manager at a quarterly business review or whatever it is, and they go out to the website and they book on, right? Where we really want to do is we want to meet the customer when they're at their most maybe vulnerable is not the right word, but they're at the point where they're in the journey where they're the most likely to buy, and that's when they're buying your main product. Okay. And so I'll get that to number 3. The second kind of way that we see customers trying to sell this is that, usually it'll be some sort of person on the customer success team, or maybe in the training team has a dedicated person in sales and so forth. And they'll kind of call around customers or, move around customers, however they're going to get in touch with them and try to upsell them on a training package or a class and whatnot. And that can work. But again, it's kind of that, it can be time consuming. It can be expensive. It's not the most efficient thing. And again, it's not hitting the customer when they are wanting to buy, when they're literally ready to stroke a check and make a purchase. Okay. So what we really want to do is those two things are important and they should be leveraged and that's great. But what we really want to do is solve this problem of how product companies can sell training alongside their product, right? Because most of the time when we serve companies, we serve a lot of companies in med tech, we serve a lot of companies in SaaS, we serve a lot of companies in logistics, and the ticket price of these sales can be low 6 figures, it can be 50K and up. And the nice thing about that is from an anchoring perspective, if you are selling a 6-figure deal to a customer and you say, well, we should include a training package along with that, 15, 20K, it makes sense, right? Or at least 10. And so the anchoring is very advantageous and it's a great add-on. And we'll talk about how to do that. Okay, so we want to focus in a little bit on selling training alongside your product. And then it's kind of like, what are we going to sell, right? So back to that slide earlier, the what, in many cases, what people think of is classes, right? And those are the anchoring a person to a specific date, time, and so forth. Now, that is, in our opinion, probably the worst way. Well, we've already talked about how it's almost a non-starter. You will not get classes sold alongside your product. Okay, it's just not going to happen. You will get classes sold directly and through upsells, but you're not going to get a sales team to figure out exactly when and where a person's going to go on a training. Okay, so the other two options that are left are tokens and subscriptions. All right, and I've bucketed these two, and the important thing to understand is when I say tokens, I do not mean crypto, okay? We do not mean Bitcoin. We do not mean any sort of cryptocurrency or anything like that. What we mean is a thing that is your own currency, and you can have a gold coin or a silver coin or whatever. And what you do is it's a mechanism for separating the decision-making on who, what, when, where, and why that is required to run a classroom training for your customer from the buying decision. Okay. So if you think about this, the way that we support this within Administrate is it's a first class feature. You can basically say, I want tokens to be put out there. And you can have different tiers, like I was saying, like you can have as many different issues of tokens that you would like. We tend to suggest people start small, start simple, and just have one currency that you're talking in. And a lot of customers will make it an analog in terms of like hours, for example. So they'll call it one token will be roughly equivalent to 1 hour. Some customers get more or less fancy around this. You can go nuts on this, but basically you then are selling a basket or a group of 100 tokens. Maybe that's 100 hours of training. And that means that then those tokens get assigned to the customer when the sale is made. Now, how that happens. Some customers have integrated with Salesforce and other CRMs and so forth, so that when a token sale gets made, that gets kicked over to Administrate via an API or an integration, and it's all automatic. Some customers are like, you know what, we don't mind keying in a few numbers for every sale, and they've worked it out that way. But the point is, you take the tokens and you allocate them against the customer, okay, not an individual. This is a really key point because, again, we're providing flexibility and we're providing basically ease of use for your customers, or for your customers' customers. And what happens is those tokens get loaded up to the account. So let's just say that Dell Computer buys 100 tokens of training alongside some piece of software. Maybe they bought from Oracle or whatnot. And those get loaded up. And then what happens is any user within the Dell organization can go through and browse the catalog and see all the offerings of training that you have. And those schedules will be updated and changing and so forth. And then if they go and say, I would like to go on this training, what happens is the tokens, the cost of that training, however many, maybe it was a 5 token course, 10 token, whatever, is automatically decremented from the balance, and it's a frictionless experience for the end user. They just go in, they say, yeah, I'd like to take this training. The balance is allocated correctly, and the training team knows, okay, we now have 95 tokens left in that example, right? And this is a super powerful way to enable these sales of training alongside the product. And it's also a great way to make sure that the customer is aware that they've got training, that they're valuing it, and so forth. And it also helps the training team keep tabs on how people are interacting with their balances and going through things. And it's all automatic, right? So tokens is a surefire way to get your sales team motivated to sell training alongside the main product, not distract anybody. We don't have to make all these decisions about things that we can't possibly know at the point of sale. And it's phenomenal. In fact, this feature was championed originally by the team at ForgeRock because they needed a solution to this sales problem at scale. They were growing very rapidly and they needed to be able to sell training. And this is the solution that we came up with, and it's been great. Okay, so the next key thing that you can do to solve this problem is offer a subscription. Okay, and this is also not crypto, just to keep things consistent. And basically, a subscription is access to a group of training, or a library, or a catalog of training for a specific time. Okay, and the way that this works is it's slightly different from tokens, and I'll talk a little bit about where and why you might want to use this versus the other. But instead of being assigned to an account, well, it does get assigned to a customer, but the actual subscription is then ultimately assigned to a user, right? So you might buy 10 subscriptions and then they sit there for a while, and then you parcel them out to the users as it makes sense. And basically, you have access. A lot of times these are annual subscriptions. Sometimes they're monthly, but in general we kind of see at least annual. And for that length of time, there is access to this library or training, and you can offer different tiers of subscription as well, right? So you can have maybe a bronze, silver, and gold, and as they pay more or whatnot, maybe their access is greater, and you can have different libraries and so forth that you present. And the reason that this is very popular is because what this does, particularly for companies that are selling, whether it's support or their main product on a subscription basis, like a SaaS company, this aligns the training sale to their mainline business model. Because what you don't really want to have happen is you sell somebody a 3-year subscription to software, and then you kind of make them buy things a la carte, or they'll want to buy 100 tokens or whatnot. The mismatch between business models gets to be annoying and a little bit hard to articulate and defend. And so customers that like to buy a subscription for products will want to buy a subscription for training. And one of the challenges that customers run into here, particularly large multinationals, is around things like revenue recognition and so forth for both of these concepts. And so by having an automated platform that can track all this stuff for you, you don't have to worry about that. You can send your reports to finance as to when the training was redeemed and what outstanding balance is and all that type of stuff. And the revenue recognition can become very, very clean and easy to understand. And that's another kind of thing that sometimes holds customers back from exploring this. Okay. Now, one other thing to point out is just kind of rewinding back to the how bucket and the what bucket. Now, we would tend to recommend that most customers consider offering all of these ways to think about selling their training, right? So we think direct, upsell, and alongside product, they're all valid and they all should be explored. And in many cases, you will want to at least have two of these mechanisms in the what category, i.e., you want to offer probably classes and subscriptions. You can buy a class individually, but you can also buy a subscription, or you can buy a class individually, but you could also buy tokens. We have seen customers offer all three. And what tends to happen is the subscription-based product companies will want to offer subscriptions. Sometimes if you're just selling a product, it's a machine or something, and you sell a couple every year and your customer buys a few from you every year and it's not subscription-based, they will be less interested in the subscription option. However, most high value equipment sales will include some sort of subscription component, whether it's maintenance or whatever. And so we would recommend offering that as well for selling your training. Okay. So, the upshot of this is when you think about tokens and subscriptions, the reaction that you're going to get when you offer this to your sales teams is, I can sell that, right? It's a complete contrast from previous, which is, I will never be able to sell that because I can't figure out the logistics of who, what, when, why, or where. But when we remove that, we decouple the actual decision-making of what is the detail behind this training delivery from the sales teams really love that. And so it has been our experience in our own sales organization that, okay, there was a little bit of friction early on in terms of sales and so forth, but once we implemented the tokens and subscriptions concept, it became a non-issue. And it was one of those things that went from being on 0 sales to tacked on to literally every sale. And there's a whole bunch of things you can do here too that are powerful when you've got a revenue generating profitable training business behind it, okay? Because one of the things that we do that is very, very popular is if you maintain a certain ratio of certified users, you will get a reduction in your or you'll get an enhanced service level agreement from us. And the reason we do that is because we know that when you have enough certified users within the user base, that the questions that you send in are going to be real questions, high quality questions, and there are going to be far fewer of them because you'll know the system in and out. And so these types of incentives can really, really help in the sales process. Not only are you delivering a much better customer experience across the board, but you're driving revenue. So it's very, very powerful. And this is what happens when you get this right, which is training and these tokens and subscriptions just becomes another SKU. It's just another thing in the product catalog that you have to sell that is easy to explain. And it's kind of like, how many of us have bought something that we don't know how to work or it's new to us or whatnot. And we're like, no, we don't need any training at all. It's a very difficult spot to be in as a prospect or a customer and say, no, I don't need any training. People will buy your training. And, with the money and resources that you've put behind it, they're going to get great value from that. And ultimately you're going to get a ton of benefit from it. So our rule of thumb would be that product companies should target break even of the training operation within 12 to 18 months. Okay. Now, it could be longer, it could be shorter. I think we broke even at something like the 18-month mark ourselves. Now we invested a little bit in kind of like an outsized way. We invested maybe more than we would have had to get started, but it was important for us. When we have folks that are training teams that are your customers, you need to make sure your own training is high quality. It is one of the toughest audiences that you can possibly get when you're building out a training program is people who train others for a living. So we kind of over invested in that, and that's why it took us a little bit longer. But this is all in, right? So I'm talking salaries fully loaded, software like Administrate to help you run this thing, production costs around, videos and materials and so forth. You should be able to bootstrap a training operation to profitability within 12 to 18 months. And I mean, worst case 24. And the reason behind that is you're going to have not only the customer success arm of the business helping you upsell this stuff and the direct channel and whatever, but with every product that comes through, you will be able to sell training to those customers. And so if you think about it, our kind of, I would say a rule of thumb, now this is like anything, and we should ask Kevin when he comes on in a couple of weeks' time what he thinks. But the rule of thumb I would think that you would want to target is kind of 5 to 10% of new sales would go to training. So if you're selling $10 million a year, 5 to 10% of that is what you could expect to drive in terms of training revenue, and that would be a healthy target. And again, you need to be charging a decent amount for this so that people will value it, and so that that your organization will value it. And really, if you're sitting there thinking about, oh, that's great, but how are we ever going to achieve this? This is our promise at Administrate, right? Which is you buy Administrate, a platform that is designed to help you manage training at scale, and we will, within 90 days, get rid of 80 to 90% of that manual burden that you have running all these trainings all around the world, chasing after instructors and students and sending out reminders and so forth. That will all become automated. Now you can scale. You don't need to build out a massive training team. Our training team is one person, okay? And that ForgeRock example of a publicly traded company that went all the way from nothing to publicly traded, I think at the height, their training team was 5 people, okay? And so this is the point, right? You want software to come in and help run this thing. So we will get you up and running within 90 days. Within 1 year, we'll have integrated other systems. We'll work alongside you to identify what these are. Maybe it's your CRM, so you can get those tokens in and out and so forth. But you're going to have projects that you're going to want to explore, and we'll be there with you or our partners. And then ultimately for the future, you can move my head a little bit, is you have a platform now that's built in terms of and it's flexible, and it's something you can build on, and you can add new tools. A lot of times we'll have a little plus AI bit at the bottom here. And that's because, with all this AI revolution and stuff that's happening, you're going to need data to feed into the AI, and you're going to need to store the outputs that are coming back. And so Administrate is a platform that is designed to do just that. So if this strikes you as interesting, get in touch, connect with us on LinkedIn, hit up our website and so forth. We just updated our homepage to hopefully make this more clear. And, just to recap, why sell training? Well, customer success is a huge, huge reason. It's the reason. You will find that your customer success is amplified. The metrics you care about will move in the right directions, and it will be a very, very powerful growth engine for your business. The challenge is most people do not have a platform and do not have systems that will support the very critical piece, which is you must be able to sell your training divorced of the actual who, what, when, where, why. And so that's where tokens and subscriptions come into play. And then that supports these business models. And ultimately, if you invest in that platform and the right mechanisms for empowering your sales team, you will find that this is a much easier project than you might have thought. You'll find that there's not only organizational success there at the end of the road, but also personal success and the success of your team. So we've got some more resources here. You can hit this URL. Maybe I'll just, you're going to have to figure that out. It's getadministrate.com/resources/LinkedIn-live. So we'll be posting that stuff and it'll be out on our website. But hit that URL up. That's where all of our past broadcasts are stored, and you can see what's coming on, and we're going to be talking about up in the future. And ultimately, next week we do these. We're trying to do these about every week. We are going to be talking about a tremendous product update to Administrate that I am personally super excited about. JJ, our product designer, is going to join me for this one. He is super excited about this. And when the two of us get excited about something, well, who knows what's going to happen. But basically, we're going to take you through how you can automate away the pain of dealing with instructor availability at scale when running classroom training. And the way that we're going to do that, and I'm just teasing this a little bit, is showing you how our calendar integration feature works and how our system will identify and alert you to problems and help you resolve those problems. So we've all been flying somewhere on Delta, if you're like me, and a flight gets changed or canceled or whatever, and we get an email and it says there's been a problem, you've been swapped to some other flight. We're going to show you how to do this in Administrate at scale with your instructors when life happens. So I'm really excited about it. We'll be doing that a week from today at the same time. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Like always, let us know. Give us feedback, connect with me on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat. And, if you see some of our team out there or you want to, you've got questions or comments, whatever, get in touch. And we'd love to figure out and explore how you could build a high performing, high revenue, profitable training program that will drive your business towards success. All right, that's it for today. Broadcasting from sunny Edinburgh, Scotland. We'll be in touch next week, and thanks so much for your time.